Now, Bumpy Johnson is pulling the strap out on Malcolm X. What is going on here? We're going to find out in this episode recap, episode 8 of Godfather of Harlem. Family, if you're just finding me, definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and definitely drop your comments below. We're going to break down this episode. Don't forget to check out all my episode recaps so you get caught up on everything so you don't miss anything. So now, let's get into episode 8 recap, Godfather of Harlem. So the name of this episode is Homeland or Death, and it reads, Bumpy uncovers a CIA plot to assassinate Malcolm X and Che Guevara at the United Nations. Malcolm writes his autobiography. Olympia utilizes Father Lewis to get out of trouble. Lillian hires a private investigator to look into the death of her husband. So we first start off here with Malcolm and Bumpy, and Malcolm is definitely going to go through with his speech at the United Nations. But Bumpy doesn't want him to do it because he knows that the CIA is plotting against him to kill him. Malcolm does notice that Bumpy is looking down, and Bumpy shares that Mamie definitely left him. Malcolm does appreciate Bumpy's concern, but he's still going to go through with the speech. We see the super traitor Jose Battle talking with Wild Bill from the CIA. They have rocket launchers, and that's how they plan on assassinating Che Guevara and Malcolm X if they do that speech at the UN. And the crazy part about it is that with this rocket launcher, they're pretty much going to destroy everyone in that meeting at the United Nations at the cost of Che Guevara and Malcolm X. So they're getting ready and getting the rocket launcher ready, and Wild Bill is showing Jose Battle exactly what this rocket launcher can do. So they blew up a car. Jose Battle, kind of flinches. And yeah, Wild Bill is definitely about assassinating Malcolm X and Che Guevara. So here we are, we're back at the spot, we're dancing, we're playing the bongos and the trumpet, and who do we see? Jose Battle dancing with a beautiful young lady, and who shows up? Bumpy Johnson is at the bar. And yeah, Jose Battle is getting his groove on. He's on a little date or whatever, having a good time. He walks over to Bumpy like, what the hell are you doing here? Bumpy is telling Jose Battle that he needs men to surround Malcolm to protect him. And Jose Battle is just telling him, listen, tell him not to make the speech. That's the only way he's not going to get assassinated. And he says, excuse me, I'm on a little date. So now that they have severed ties, Jose Battle can care less, and he is riding with the CIA. Of course, yeah, Bumpy definitely is going to make him pay for his betrayal. So here we go with Stella and Colombo. I tell you, they got a little love affair going on, but it's kind of undercover. It's just admiration as of right now. She tells him that her father told him that the IRS is their friend. She explains how he can definitely do some savings as far as pennies and cents, and it could save him millions of dollars. She, of course, is talking about some type of tax evasion. Of course, Colombo loves that, and he is like, I love your brain and everything else like that. So he just loves how she thinks, and she's definitely, feeling, the admiration from him. At the same time, Colombo wants to know what her father's next move is because, yeah, he realizes that her father definitely still going to come for him after everything that just happened. So she doesn't know, but, they're trying to figure out what his next move is. So here we go with Olympia Gigante, and she is going to Father Lewis, who is also the uncle of Stella, right? So she's coming to him because she's saying how Joe Colombo was spreading lies and rumors and everything, and how it's messing up the reputation of the family. So she wants the father to go to the bosses to get them to get Joe Colombo to stop spreading the rumors, even though we know it's not a rumor, that she did try to get Stella hit and that she did sleep with one of the bosses. Of course, the father, Lewis, he's like, listen, that's not a good idea. I don't want to get involved. And she has the nerve to point her finger and say, what would Jesus do? So here we go. We got Malcolm, we got Bumpy, we got Omar, and we got Che Guevara. And they're sitting down and they're talking about what's about to happen. Bumpy is warning Che Guevara and Malcolm X that there will be a clear attempt to assassinate both of them if they make their speech at the UN. Of course, they are both revolutionaries and they're going to go through with it. Even Omar warns against it, but you already know. Malcolm X is going to go through with his speech, and Che Guevara is going to do the same. He's warning Che Guevara and Malcolm not to do it. Of course, Omar, he's head of security now, so he already realizes what's going on. Malcolm is still going to go forward regardless of what Bumpy is saying. Che Guevara asked Bumpy if he was in his position, what would he do? Of course, Bumpy said, I would fight with everything that I have, but we definitely have to play smart. And you want to be smart enough not to be there and not to do your speech so you won't be assassinated. So here we go with Mamie, and Mamie is talking to Lillian, right? That's Archie's wife. And she just can't believe how Archie was murdered and everything else like that, talking like he's not part of anything criminal, no criminal activity. Of course, Mamie knows the truth, but she is talking to Lillian and saying how, she had to leave Bumpy because of everything, and she does feel sorry for her loss. Lillian is re-emphasizing how good of a man Archie is. Of course, we know the truth that yes, Archie was dealing with Bumpy and they were doing business, but she doesn't know that. But Lillian is really mad at Bumpy and says he's a terrible man and you should never go back to him and everything else like that. Of course, Mamie is looking on. Now, Malcolm has decided to write his own autobiography, so he does have a writer come in, and he's impressed by the writer because the writer definitely captured each and every part of Malcolm's life back when he was a hustler and every aspect of Malcolm's life. And he wants to make sure that it's done correctly, so he's very impressed. We're going to see what happens. Now, Bumpy comes to Lillian's house, Archie's house, with flowers for Lillian. He gives it to Mamie. It says this is for her. She says, I'll make sure she gets it. Bumpy then asks Mamie to talk to Adam Clayton Powell because Malcolm is making a speech at the UN and he needs to have some men around him to protect him. Of course, he's questioning like, okay, well, what about your men and everything else like that? He's just like, listen, I just need your help. Can you talk to Adam Clayton Powell and ask him to do that? And she says, okay, she'll talk to him. She's like, okay, well, anything else? And he says, listen, I love you and I want you back home. Can you please come back home? Of course, that's something that she is going to think about, whether she's going to come back or not. Again, he's trying to be nice, but, she has a lot to think about. Here we go with Father Lewis, and Father Lewis sits down with the mob bosses. Of course, they're happy to see Father Lewis. They know that he is the brother of Chen. And yeah, they're definitely feeling good that he's there because he's a father and everything else like that. So they ask him, hey, Father, what can we do you for? How can we help you? And, he's definitely coming on behalf of the family, on behalf of his brother. And from what he's saying, that there are some rumors going around that, Chen's wife, Mrs. Gigante, Olympia, has been sleeping around and doing all types of stuff. So he definitely confronts Joe Colombo and says Joe Colombo is spreading rumors, from what they understand, that, yeah, Mrs. Gigante is sleeping around with one of the mob bosses. Of course, Joe Colombo knows the truth, but he's not going to say anything about it, and he's not going to give up the mob boss that is sleeping with his wife. So, Father Lewis is just like, listen, I implore you not to do this, and Chen doesn't want to be associated with you anymore. He is definitely disgusted with your behavior and how you're handling things, and he sounds like he is representing now and stepping in for his brother, which is a bad move because, again, he's the father of a church, and he shouldn't be getting involved, and Joe Colombo knows that. Joe Colombo is pissed off, goes back to the office, he's throwing stuff around. Of course, Stella's like, calm down. We have to look at this from a different perspective. And, Joe Colombo is just on some like, what, I've never whacked a father before, but I might have to. Of course, Stella's like, nah, don't do that. That's my uncle. Let me go talk to him and calm him down. He shouldn't be getting involved in everything. And again, they were talking about what the next move was as far as Chen against Colombo, but it looks like this is one of them. But Stella figures out that, yeah, it was her mother, Olympia, that put him up to it. So she's going to go talk to him and try to calm him down to tell him that he should not get involved in this mob business for his own well-being. So Mamie goes and talks to one of the representatives of Adam Clayton Powell. He's out of town. So he makes a phone call to call Adam Clayton Powell to see what they can do as far as getting men around Malcolm to protect Malcolm. And it's saying that there's a lot going on and Malcolm should definitely not do the speech. while he's out of town. And of course, Mamie's like, yo, you got men all over the place. You could just make some phone calls. She's trying to be adamant to protect Malcolm because Malcolm is going to go forward with his speech. And with all that being said, Bumpy goes to Elise and tries to encourage Elise not to be there and to have Malcolm stop from doing his speech. She is saying to him that she's been trying to get him to stop doing that speech at the UN, but Malcolm's going to go forward. It's like he knows that he's going to die. He knows that he's going to be taken out, and Malcolm is not afraid anymore. He's just going to move forward regardless. So Bumpy is telling her that he wants her not to be there, but she's like, she doesn't know. She'll think about it. So here we go with Wild Bill and Jose battle, and they are looking at some signs. They made up some signs to be a distraction as to what they're really planning to do, which is to shoot a rocket into the UN and to kill Malcolm X and Che Guevara and everybody else that's in there regardless. It's all collateral damage to the CIA. So they're planning and plotting out how they're gonna shoot this rocket into the speaking area of the UN. So Bumpy and the boys are trying to figure out how this is gonna go down, how they're gonna do it, because they don't know. So of course they're trying to get word out, trying to find out anything that they can to find out how it's gonna go down. Of course, Bumpy's talking to Del and saying, hey, listen, you know what? I want you to send a message to Wild Bill, do some recon work and see what they're doing. At the same time, get on your knees and pray for Malcolm. Send a prayer up for Malcolm. So Malcolm is doing another chapter in his book, and this is about Bumpy Johnson and how on the surface, he's an entrepreneur, he's a businessman, and on the surface, he may seem like a terrible person from what he's doing, but he's absolutely a diligent black man trying to rise up against the powers that be. So Malcolm is absolutely talking great things about Bumpy Johnson and how through his adversities, through his challenges, he is facing the white man and the Italians and absolutely rising up to become a pillar in the community. So of course the writer likes that, and he's going to write everything down and capture everything that Malcolm is saying, which is great things about Bumpy Johnson. So now here we go. We are back at the church, and we see Father Lewis again, and Stella is there now, and she's telling him that he shouldn't have got involved with this thing right here, and that he needs to back off and not represent his father in this way, because it's going to cause nothing but problems with Joe Colombo. He's wondering why she's taking sides with Joe Colombo after what Joe Colombo's trying to do to the family. And she's telling him she knows exactly what the truth is, and he needs to back off and not do this before there's any trouble. He kicks her out of the church and says, come back when you are ready to get forgiveness for your sins. He's like, all right, I'm warning you, uncle. I'm letting you know you shouldn't get involved in this area of business, especially with the mob. So let's see if he listens. So here we go. Yep, your boy Del goes to speak to Wild Bill, and he's looking around, doing his recon, getting some intel, and he sees this produce truck on the side, right? So he's looking and seeing and trying to find anything that he can see. So he goes in to sit down with Wild Bill. He's all smiles like, yeah, you know, I'm here, you know, to give you some information and everything else like that. And they kind of chop it up or whatever. So Wild Bill is like, okay, what do you got for me? He's like, well, just know Bumpy may be the friend of Malcolm X, but I don't care about Malcolm X. You know, I'm ready to shoot him down just like you are ready to shoot him down, right? So Del is trying to play cool, like he's down for the CIA and down for that movement and everything else like that. Wild Bill is like, yo, cut the bull, because I know that you are definitely tied to Bumpy and you're loyal to Bumpy. And yeah, I know who you are and that you were down with the army and everything else like that. So Del looks to the side and he sees those rocket launchers on the side. And he's like, listen, man, just know that, yeah, I am loyal to Bumpy. And yeah, this is not going to go down the way you think it's going to go down. So Del goes back to Bumpy and he lets him know, like, yeah, he saw a rocket launcher in there and he saw a produce truck and he saw everything else like that. So they have to look out for that. They have to look out for that on the day of the speech to try to find a location as to where they're going to shoot those rocket launchers into the speaking area in order to kill off Che Guevara and Malcolm X. So Mamie comes back to Lillian's house and she sees that Lillian is paying some guy with an envelope. He walks out the door. He knows who Mamie is. And she's like, oh, who's that? She's like, oh, I hired a private investigator to look into the murder of Archie. So Mamie's like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Lillian says, well, yeah, you know, the police are not doing anything. I don't trust anybody. And you know what? This is going to implicate your husband. F your husband, right? Oh, man. And shouldn't have said that because Mamie's like, listen, you better call him back right now and call that off. She's like, forget your husband, Bumpy. And she's like, I don't want to have to drag you and your wig up and down these blocks. You better call him back right now and call off that private investigator. You are not going to implicate my husband at this point. You better call him back right now. So she sits down and hands her the phone. You better call her back because Mamie is not playing. Do not mess with her husband, Bumpy. She will drag you up and down the street. Man, Mamie does not play, and she loves Bumpy like that. So Father Lewis is walking down the street like everything is all good. Somebody bumps into him, and another guy comes up behind him. They grab him up, and who is it? That's right, Joe Colombo and his boys grabbing him up. Now they show a shot. It looks like somebody's sitting in a car, and that's Stella looking down the street as Colombo is talking to the priest, right? They push him off, and he pushes off. He jumps in the car, says, listen, I told him not to say anything else, to back off, and to definitely don't say anything to the mob bosses anymore, or it's going to be problems. She warned him. So here we go with Wild Bill and Jose battle, and they are putting these rocket launchers together. This is crazy, right? CIA is going to basically kill everybody in the UN in order to kill off Che Guevara and Malcolm X. This is crazy. So they hire some guys, and it looks like to be Jose Battle's guys. And yeah, he's talking to him like, yeah, make sure it gets done. You know, make sure you don't talk to anybody. And he's really kind of talking down to these guys. Wild Bill is kind of talking down to Jose Battle's people. Of course, Jose Battle really doesn't like that. But he's like, listen, you know, if they talk, we're going to have to kill them. Just know that. They should just keep their mouth shut. As long as they get the job done, then we're good. But if we got to take them out, we got to take them out too. So they jump in this produce truck and they get on a run. It's time to go to the location in order to shoot that rocket launcher and to kill off Malcolm X and Che Guevara. So Malcolm is about to go to the UN. Bumpy rolls up and gets out of the car. And he's like, what are you doing, Bumpy? What's going on? And why are you here? So Bumpy's like, listen, man, you're not going to the United Nations to do that speech. I know for sure that they're going to try to kill you. Malcolm is like, listen, I don't care about that. We're all going to die. I have to make this speech. This is one of the most important speeches in the world. Omar is there right by his side. And he's like, listen, Bumpy, you got to let me go. I got to go do my thing. Bumpy's like, listen, you're not going to make that speech today. You're not going. I'm not going to allow you to do that. Meanwhile, your boy Dell and Nat is running all over the city looking for the locations. They have protesters outside protesting Che Guevara and everything else and all of these radical ideas. And they're talking about kill Castro. You know, they got protesters outside. Some of these people are for real and some of them are not. We see your boy Che Guevara roll up. He is now rolling into United Nations. And Malcolm is supposed to be there, but Malcolm's like, hey, Bumpy, get out of the way. Your boy Bumpy pulls out the strap on Malcolm and says, listen, you're not going to do it today. You're not doing that speech today. For your safety, I'm keeping you here. And if you move, I may have to shoot you in the knees in order for you to understand how serious this is. I'm trying to save your life. So Bumpy is pulling the strap out on Malcolm so he won't make that speech. He knows for sure that if that rocket launcher is shot, then everybody's dead, including him. So we see old pictures of Che Guevara going into United Nations, sitting down, about to make his speech. So Malcolm is now sitting down in the house watching this speech by Che Guevara at the UN. Of course, Malcolm is upset. They're all sitting there watching to see what's going to happen as whether or not there's going to be a rocket launcher shot at Che Guevara while he's doing his speech up there at the UN. So he goes in and talks about, you know, the revolution and talks about Cuba and everything else like that. Meanwhile, we see across the river, that's Manhattan right there. So they got to be in Queens, right? Looking over into the UN and they're looking at the TV. Che Guevara's doing a speech. Malcolm's like, listen, Bumpy, I will never forgive you for this. He is not appreciating the fact that he has to sit there while Che Guevara gives his speech. But these guys are setting everything up. Nat and Dell, they are running around the city trying to find the location as to where these guys are going to be shooting this off. And they setting everything up, getting ready to shoot right into the target, right into the speaking area of the UN. They know exactly where to hit this thing. And yeah, they got the target set. Che Guevara still giving his speech. I mean, it's getting really intense. And yeah, Malcolm is just sitting there upset, mad because of everything that he prepared to do. Of course, Bumpy feels like he's doing the right thing, which is to keep him there and keep him away from all the trouble that's going on. Pettigrew and Dell are looking, and just as this guy's about to shoot this rocket launcher, they roll up and Dell shoots the guy in the back. Bow. And instead of shooting at the UN, he shoots up. And yeah, that rocket shoots up and just falls right into the river. So they just slaved hundreds of lives in the UN right there by shooting this guy and making sure that rocket didn't hit the UN. Che Guevara goes through with his speech. Malcolm is still looking on, still angry at Bumpy. And he says, well, it looks like, yeah, they didn't try to attempt that assassination. He says, I think you and your guys need to leave. And you need to leave now and leave permanently, meaning like don't even come back. Malcolm is seriously pissed because Che Guevara got to say his speech, but he didn't get to say his own speech. You can tell by Bumpy's face that, you know, Malcolm didn't appreciate it and he doesn't need to be there. So Bumpy leaves and he goes home. And who's at home? That's right, his beautiful wife, Mamie, is right there waiting for him. He is so happy to see her, that she's back, and she is happy to see him. You know, like, again, whatever's going on between them, nothing can stop love. And that's right, Mamie comes back home to her husband, and she is absolutely happy to see him. She doesn't want anything to happen to him, regardless of what he's into. She knows what he's into. She married him. So she's just cherishing the fact that she's back home with him and that he's safe. So Malcolm is reading the last chapter, which was about Bumpy Johnson. And the writer is truly excited to see what he thought about what the writer put together about the chapter. As Malcolm is reading the last chapter, it looks like the author here, I believe to be Alex Haley, is very excited. And Malcolm tears it up and says he made a big mistake about talking up good about Bumpy Johnson. He thought about it, and it was actually a mistake that he wanted to do a chapter on Bumpy Johnson. Clearly, his anger has taken over, and he doesn't want this chapter in his book, and he doesn't want to be associated with Bumpy Johnson after all that Bumpy has done for him to protect him and to save his life. So that is the episode 8 recap for Godfather of Harlem. Family, let me know your thoughts on this right here. I thought it was definitely a great and intense episode. And we see how the tides are now changing, how alliances have changed. And yeah, will Bumpy and Malcolm still be comrades? We shall see in the next episode of Godfather of Harlem. Family, if you just found me for the first time, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and absolutely comment and share this with everyone you know who loves Godfather of Harlem. I appreciate you all for watching. Thank you for your love and your support. And until next time, salute.